It's been way too long since I've covered everyone's favorite hockey mask wearing psychopath. And what better to cover than the Corey Feldman starring entry that features some of the best kills, dialogue, and even dancing that the series has ever had. I'm Tyler with Joe Blow Horror, and I'm burnt to shit, and today on Real Slashers, let's take a look back at the wonderful and not so final Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter.
At least the guy's been leaving the wet stuff?
Yeah. This time he got 7 kids and 3 bikers.
This time they got him.
Friday the 13th Part 4 takes place right where Part 3 left off, with Jason dead in the barn. So bag him up and ship him to the morgue. There we get to meet this scumbag. And as much as I feel bad for this girl, she's succumbing to his scumbagginess and seems into him. What's wrong with this woman? Is there anything appealing about this guy?
Oh no.
Well, Jason does his best to make quick work of both of them, even twisting this guy's head around. Jesus. Next, we meet our group of teens. Paul, his girlfriend Sam, Sarah, Doug, awkward Jimmy, and jokester Ted. This may be my favorite group from any of the Friday the 13th films, and a lot of that has to do with Crispin Glover's Jimmy. He's an awkward guy who has trouble with girls and makes the terrible mistake of confiding in Ted, because Ted does just about whatever he can to make Jimmy feel terrible.
I did not say it. The computer did.
Yeah, well, there is no computer.
Aha! And there's no Betty either.
But thankfully he gets some pretty great revenge. But we'll touch on that in a bit. The teens drive by a hitchhiker and we get one of the most absurd scenes I've ever watched in my whole goddamn life. This lady has a Canada and love sign that is also equipped with a nice fuck you for good measure. Then she decides to eat a banana, which apparently pisses off poor Jason, and he shoves a knife through her throat. This imagery will always be iconic just for how absolutely absurd it all is. Then we finally meet the Jarvis family. We got Mrs. Jarvis, Trish, and of course, Tommy. He's essentially a little Tom Savini, creating his own monsters. And they're pretty damn impressive. I mean, look at this thing. It's animatronic and everything. Tommy is also quite the little perv. I mean, they really do everything they can to make this kid as relatable as possible. It helps that Corey Feldman was about as charismatic as they come during this era. But the Tommy Jarvis character is just fantastic. There's a reason he's such a fan favorite. The teens get up to no good, even meeting up with some twins.
God, I'm horny.
I think one of the most interesting aspects of the final chapter are the character dynamics. Paul and Sam are dating, yet he doesn't seem to be the best boyfriend, getting seduced by one of the twins. But after getting turned down, she decides that she wants to hook up with Jimmy. Most likely due to his sweet, sweet dance moves. I mean, at least I assume that's why he gets laid, because who could possibly resist moves like this? They're eventually off one by one until we're just left with, wait, all of the teens are killed? Like every single one of them? God damn. So then we're just left with Trish and Tommy. Oh, and Rob. Almost forgot about him. The stuff with Rob feels a little like they're just filling time for Trish, but I appreciate that they're trying to connect to the past films at least. Even if it doesn't make much sense once you realize his supposed sister from Part 2, Sandra, would have only died just days prior, given that Part 2 takes place just a few days before Part 4. But that's yet another one of the silly charms of this series. The continuity is nuts. Our final showdown between Tommy and Jason is fantastic. So much so that I feel it deserves its own section. So let's get to it.
Jason! Jason, don't you remember? Jason.
After Jason dispatches Rob in the basement, we're led on a nice little cat and mouse chase between he and Trish. This is really where the cinematography shines with the night scenes, which almost feels weird to say since the series has always been pretty visually stale, at least to this point. But here is where they really establish a certain look. I'll always love what director Joseph Zito brought to the series. Trish finds some of the other teens' bodies, including Jimmy, whose Jason has crucified to the door frame. Holy dear God. Trish refuses to pass by the dead bodies, so she instead knocks out a window. God damn. You know, stepping over that twin wouldn't have been that big of a deal. She even does it later on. Trish finds Tommy, and we get so many scene-stealing moments from here on out. Eventually, Jason gets a TV dropped on his head, and Trish tells Tommy to run like hell. But Tommy is too good of a brother for that. Meanwhile, Trish is back in a cat and mouse with Jason, where she ends up falling out of a window. Holy hell, this girl is going through a lot in the final 20 minutes. She's about as indestructible as Jason himself. But it's not done yet. After Trish has a bit of a close call with Jason, Tommy uses his smarts to quickly shave off all his hair and imitate a young Jason himself. I guess it's implied that he's read up on Jason a bit by the cutout articles as he's shaving his head. So he cosplays as a young Jason, and it actually works. Well, goddamn, Tommy, what an idea. Trish is able to take advantage of the situation and knocks Jason's mask off, and we get a full view of our little Jason Voorhees monstrosity. Dear God. Tom Savini's work on this will always just be incredible. And with a chop of the machete, we have one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history. It's so damn good. And the follow-up chops by little Tommy are just the icing on the cake.
Hey, Ted, where the hell's corkscrew?
What else can be said about our wonderful Camp Crystal Lake inhabitant? If you haven't seen any movie in the series, the opening does a good job of recapping the first 3 films. In fact, what is it with this series and retelling prior endings in their opening minutes? Either way, I think it works to the film's advantage. Jason has his trademark hockey mask, but this is really the first time we're seeing zombie Jason. This version of Jason is a bit more powerful than the hillbilly inbred that we've seen previously. Now he's got grotesque green-brown fingernails and an absolutely ghoulish face. Although I will say, Jason's dying apparently changed up his appearance quite a bit, because he didn't look this rough just a day prior. Jason also really switches up his killing method, even doing some serious scuba diving in order to get some of these kills. I'm sure most know this story by now, but this poor girl froze her ass off for this scene. Respect. In fact, the whole rain aesthetic really adds to most of the kills, especially this one. While the kills end a little bit too soon, that doesn't mean you're not able to really feel their impact. Hell, we don't even see Rob's death, yet it is haunting with his screams of Jason here is portrayed by Ted White. This is one of my favorite Jason performances out there. There's such a violence to his movements and a little extra something on his kills. He has a great walk as well. I like that he still feels a little bit human and isn't full-on lumbering yet. The whole look is incredible, and Ted White will always get my vote for one of the better Jasons.
Tommy, get the hell out of here! Now! You son of a bitch! I'm gonna give you something to remember.
Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, released on April 13th, 1984, and brought in over $11 million on its opening weekend. It ended its run at nearly $33 million, which was slightly less than Part 3. The final chapter holds a Rotten Tomatoes rating of, wait, excuse me? You know what, fuck that. These are slasher movies and I don't want to focus on that nonsense. This movie rules, and there's a reason that it ranks amongst the top of the series. While I really wish that they would have capitalized on the ending, with Tommy being teased to be evil, but I really can't complain as I still enjoyed what we got. And as we all know by now, just because it was called the final chapter, this was anything but. We've seen Jason in film after film, some better than others. And hopefully we'll get to those eventually. The Friday the 13th franchise has been in a bit of a lull over the last few years because of the lawsuit between Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham. Fortunately, it does seem like we're having a bit of movement on that front. But there haven't been any official announcements yet, so I guess we'll have to just wait and see.
Jason's body has disappeared from the morgue.
There's a big reason that this movie has endured so much over the years. The opening serves as a perfect recap of the first 3 films and leads to an incredible slasher all its own, which makes this one of the easiest to rewatch in the entire series. I know that this is often one that I grab when a Friday the 13th comes up, and there's always one just around the corner. So throw this in, unless you're a dead fuck.
What? A dead fuck?